Welcome to NWTC International Student Show. This is a great time for you to learn more about other countries and culture from students and staff of NWTC, Green Bay, Wisconsin. In this fourth episode, we will hear international experience from two staff of NWTC. First is Brenda La Malfa, an English teacher, program assistant, and caseworker for Career Pathways in General Studies Office. She had a lot of international experience in many countries, such as Europe and Latin America. She never stopped to learn about other countries and culture by reading and meeting new people from all over the world. Secondly, Oestreicher, a paralegal instructor of NWTC who live in Spain and work in England. Now, as one of paralegal instructors, she always encouraged her students to learn and experience another countries and cultures in the world. How did Brenda and Annie do during their international experience? What are their interesting things that they never forget? And what did they learn from their global adventure and take back for their life? Let's enjoy this show.
My name is Brenda La Malfa, and I am the Program Assistant and Caseworker for Career Pathways in the General Studies Office. This is a program of 9 careers that offers college courses to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to take college, like people who don't have a GED or a high school diploma, people who are ELL learners, where English isn't their first language, or people who wanted to take classes but didn't make the scores for traditional programming. So I help them with those things, and it's very rewarding. I'm actually from a small town up north, about 45 minutes, called Marinette. I have been actually all over the world, but not Indonesia, so that's on my bucket list. I lived in Finland for a year, got to visit Russia, Sweden, Norway when I was there. I learned Finnish, and then I lived for 19 months in Mexico, 2 different cities, and I taught English there. I've also traveled to Ireland and Estonia. And where are there? I've traveled to Canada and parts of the U.S., but internationally speaking, yeah, I've lived overseas a couple of times, and I would certainly do it again. In fact, I'd like to do the Peace Corps someday. Well, I think it's very important that if you're going to live in a country, that you act like you're living in that country and not like a crazy American gringo. They have a saying in Spanish and all other countries, the loud American or the obnoxious American, and I didn't want to do that. I threw myself into Spanish. I didn't care if I made mistakes. I bought locally. I didn't buy it, Starbucks, my coffee there. I bought it from a cafe on the corner. I helped feed the animals that were, they don't treat animals very well there. So I tried to volunteer my time there a little bit. I tried to help my students as best I could. And Guadalajara is a big city, and it's very modern, but you can also take part in the traditions and the foods, and you can be as involved as you want to be involved. And the opposite is true too. If you just want to go there and visit for a week or 2 during the summer to get some tan or live on the beach for a while, that's fine too. But I think it's very important to treat the people that live there with respect. And that meant learning the language and eating the food and walking and taking the bus and things like that. And you can't ever act like you're better than anybody, because we're not. So throwing yourself into the culture and the whole immersion experience was really invaluable. I remember it was the coldest winter of the century when I lived in Finland, for example. It was so cold one day we had to go to this island called Suomenlinna, which means Finnish castle, actually. And it was so cold that the whole lake had frozen, so we actually walked across the water, the frozen water, from Helsinki to Suomenlinna, the island. Otherwise, you would have had to take a ferry or a boat. But it was frozen that day, and we walked to my best friend's birthday party. But I made a lot of friends there, and I got to travel and see reindeer at the Arctic Circle, which was really cool. And we also got to ski in Lapland, which was neat. It's very cold there, but it's also very beautiful. Very beautiful. I also got lost a couple of times on buses in Mexico. And you have to use your Spanish. And at the time, I got lost for an hour outside of Guadalajara. And I ended up in this small pueblito, a small town with dirt roads and, cows and horses walking through the streets. And I knew how to say estoy perdida, which is I'm lost. And they pointed me in the right direction how to get back to Guadalajara. I had no money, I had no water, and my cell phone was dead. So it was kind of a weird experience, but it also made me braver. And I think part of the whole thing about getting outside your comfort zone is it's supposed to teach you something, and it's supposed to make you braver. I also, every chance I get, I try to talk to and meet people who are not from this country. And there are a lot at NWTC, which is cool. There's a big group of international students now, they're all very lovely people, because they all have interesting stories and languages and cultures and accents. And there's a gal from Moldova who's fascinating to talk to. And she has a beautiful accent. I mean, if you want to learn Russian, you can. If you want to learn Indonesian or Portuguese, you can. We have Arabic, we have French. And I think that if people don't take advantage of these opportunities, it's a complete waste. My life has been revolving around international things since I was 12 years old when I learned French during the summertime at a local college. My mother wanted to get me out of the house, so she enrolled me in French classes, and I never turned back. And then I learned Finnish, and then I learned Spanish recently in the last 5 years. And it's how I got this job. So helping the Latino population in this city was a big reason why I moved here. And every day I wrap myself around something that's international, and I find that to be the most, fulfilling and satisfying feeling that I probably ever had. Oh, that is a really excellent question. Like, what did I learn that's really valuable when I was traveling? And I kind of want to reiterate, that you can learn a lot from people in general. But then you take someone who's from another country, from Pakistan, for example. The guys from Pakistan are so kind and so smart and so sweet. They would literally give you the shirt off their backs. They've never heard of the Beatles. They've never heard that music. And I just finished a book about an American man that built schools in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and how repressed and oppressed a lot of the people's lives were. And you learn so much. And again, I have become the person that I am because I have taken myself out of my bubble and my little, pod of contentment and comfort, and push the envelope, as we say in an expression in English, push the envelope and see what you can squeeze out of something when it's uncomfortable. So, my desire, by one of the reasons joining Global Culture, the GCC, is to get American students to not be quote unquote afraid of internationals, because you can learn a lot of valuable things from them and take away some really cool language lessons. I have a good friend who wrote down a bunch of Indonesian phrases for me, and every time I pass the paper, I speak the words out loud, and I think how beautiful that is. And this is a country of many, many islands, and, Bali is there, and Java is there, and we've all heard of these places, but only in magazines or on TV. And now you have a living, breathing person who can tell you about these things. So you're talking about a walking encyclopedia. You're talking about Rosetta Stone, living and breathing, So if you don't take advantage of these things and learn from these people, that's what I took. I took away so many cultures, the Irish culture, a little bit of the Russian and Finnish culture, a great part of the Mexican culture. And every state and every city is different in Mexico. So kind of unlike here. I mean, there's parts of the Midwest that are different from the others, and we're different from Texas and Maine and California somewhat. But we speak the same language. In Indonesia, for example, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of languages. I learned that from my friend. So valuable things are really invaluable, and they're boundless, they're endless. You can't stop learning from these people, but you just have to walk up to them and say hi. They're so friendly. They're not going to bite you or eat you or steal your kidney. They're not going to do anything. They're just interesting and kind, and it's like traveling for free. It's very expensive to go to these countries, and if you just talk to them, they will enrich your lives tenfold. And so I think the most valuable part was living among the actual people. I didn't live in a hotel. I didn't live in a fancy apartment. I lived with Spanish people and German people and Mexican people who didn't speak English. I lived with a beautiful South African teacher who became a good friend of mine. I met a Romanian guy. I met a Norwegian guy. It was really like some of the best times of my life. But you don't understand the value of something until you approach it, or until you experience it or seek it out. Otherwise it's just wasted. I would definitely learn some of the language before you go. It's ridiculous not to. I tried joining a Parks and Recreation Department class for very inexpensive, but it wasn't a good experience. I did enroll in a church program that was offering Spanish from a woman from Mexico City. I didn't feel that she was a great teacher, but I did learn a lot of Spanish that way. And then when I got there, full immersion was beneficial, and I started speaking it, and now I speak it semi-fluently on the job. So learn the language. Also do some homework, research. I literally read 12 books on living in Mexico. However, living there and reading about it are completely different things. So, I could read about going to India, but until I actually get off the airplane and walk into the country myself, I'm not going to really know that. Also, be careful of the water. Wherever you are, you need to carry pills that are going to help your stomach. If you get into trouble, you need to wash your hands all the time. You need to be smart. If you're going to have a few drinks, go out with friends, and don't be walking around dark alleys at 2 or 3 in the morning because you are going to get in trouble. Don't go looking for something you shouldn't be looking for. You have to use your head when you travel, because when you travel in a country where you look different, people are going to spot you, and desperate people do desperate things. So you need to be careful and watch out for yourself and use your head. You need to respect the people that live there and not expect them to change for you. That is a ridiculous thing, and it makes me mad when I see gringos or white people going to places like Latin America and expecting the red carpet to be rolled out for them. You can't do that. You have to have a lot of patience with yourself and with the country that you're in. So it's pushed the envelope for me. It's really pushed what I'm capable of, but it makes you so strong, especially when you travel by yourself. And now I have a greater appreciation for the Latin American culture, the people, how proud they are of what they've achieved and overcome. It's the most incredibly beautiful place I've ever seen. And I think you just have to travel. Don't stay in one place. Keep your eyes open and don't wear rose-colored glasses, as we call them. Take off the glasses and look around and see things for how they really are. You're going to see poverty extreme, and you have to see that because it exists, and we can't just keep our head in the sand. We have to see both sides of the coin. And I saw incredible, ravishing beauty. The mountains in Mexico and the water in Mexico are much like Indonesia. They're breathtaking. It was painful for me to leave that, in fact, because I feel so protected by it, by natural beauty. And it has it in droves in Mexico. I could go on and on for an hour about advice, but you really just have to do it, go for it, and don't be scared. In anything in life, you can't let fear rule your life. And that's with traveling, that's with learning a new thing, and that's with taking your... When I went to Mexico, it took me 2 years because I had a full-time job, I had debt, I had a house in my name, I had a dog, I had a cat, I had a car with a lease on it. I got rid of all of that because I was bored with my life, and I was one of those boring Americans, and I swore if I ever became bored or boring, I would do something about it. So I removed myself from all my comfort zones, except I had my cat with me. I couldn't imagine not having her around, but and it was really scary at first, but I got more out of it than I wouldn't have. And I think you have to, if you're going to say to yourself in 5 years, I wish I had done that, if you think there's any way that you're going to say that to yourself, you have to do it. You can't have regrets about stuff like this. So I say carpe diem, go for it, seize the day. Me llamo Brenda La Malfa y soy una mujer americana y yo enseño inglés en Literacy Green Bay en el centro. Tengo muchos amigos y amigas internacionales de Indonesia y Honduras, México, Pakistán, Brasilia, Tunisia, India. Tengo un muy buen vida y muy buen trabajo, y es muy importante de ama la vida y ay, no recuerdo, no, solo es muy importante de tiene experiencias en la vida, yo creo. Muchas gracias y buena tarde.
Okay, my primary role is as a paralegal instructor, so I've been doing that for 7 years, And then just this year, I took on the role of faculty lead for internationalization of curriculum to make sure that all students have international experiences here. And I've been involved in the steering committee for internationalization as well. Sure, I traveled a lot with my family when I was younger. And then when I was in college, I spent a semester in Spain. And when I graduated, I spent a summer working in England. And right now I'm putting together a study abroad trip for my students that'll be going 3 weeks from today. And we're going to London and Dublin. It's hard. You have to really just be open to everything and not have expectations of how things are going to be or that they're going to be the same as they are back at home. You really just have to, live the experience and try new things and let yourself feel a little bit uncomfortable, because that's the hardest part. And if you do that, then you really get to become part of the culture, and then it feels more natural after that. I just learned that there's more than one way to do things. The way we do things here isn't necessarily the only way to do things or isn't the best way to do things, that there's other ways to live that are just as acceptable and just as good. And the thing I liked the most was, trying the food in different countries and then being able to bring that back here and being able to eat new things and try new things. And I think that's really important. Yeah, I speak Spanish. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of international students in my classes just because the nature of our program doesn't make that feasible. And so I don't have actually international students in my class. But in terms of preparing students for their own international experiences, that we definitely do by teaching them. So I'm in paralegal, so it's about the law. So telling about the laws in other countries and how that affects here. For my study abroad trip, we talked about what the laws are like in London and Dublin in terms of the things that were different, that some of the things that we expect to happen here aren't what happened in the other country and how they need to conform to that so that they're not breaking the laws in the other countries. And even just letting them know, for example, one of my business classes, they have to do research in how business is done in other countries and what the business climate is like in other countries and things like that. So we definitely make sure that our American students understand what the legal systems are like in other countries and how things work in other countries. Some of them are really interested and they want to learn a lot about other countries and they want to travel to other countries. Other people say, well, why do I care? I don't care what the law is like in some other country because I'm here. And we have to make sure to teach them that what's going on in other countries definitely affects what happens here in terms of trade or business or things like that. So they have to realize that, yes, they may not leave this area of the country, but that doesn't mean the other parts of the world don't have an effect on them, because they definitely do. But a lot of the students really are interested in it, and they think, they really get to broaden their horizons. And some of them never thought of travel, and then when we talk about it, they want to travel to other countries. So that's really great. I think they should just, like I said at the beginning, they should just be open to all kinds of experiences. They should, eat the food, meet the people, see the sights, and really get a sense of how people live in another place. Because I think that helps them broaden their horizons. And I know I was a different person after the semester I spent in Spain, and I think they want to have that transformation as well when they go somewhere else. Oh boy. Well, the food, I love the food in Spain. They have something called a tortilla de patatas, which is it's an egg omelet, or a potato omelet, basically. One thing that was really different is I'm not a night person, and in Spain, they don't even go out until like 10:30 at night. And for me, that was really hard. I'm in bed by that time. So that was difficult for me to get used to everything being later in the day. All the meals were later in the day. But then when I came home, I realized I actually liked that better, the way that they eat their meals. So I tried to do that some here, although it's harder. I lived in a house that had a bunch of Spaniard students in it as well, so that was really fun. I'm still in touch with some of them on Facebook, so that's really great. And it's been, 15 years since I've been there for that. So, I just love going to other places and seeing other things, and I like the history and the government systems in other countries, so it's just fun to learn about other places. It's interesting to know how other people view things. And when you think about how other people look at things, it helps you see it differently, and it makes things better for you. So you're not just set in one way of thinking, and you can see and appreciate other viewpoints. And I think that's what I try to take with me every day, is the way I'm doing it isn't necessarily the only way, and how might someone else look at it, whether they're from another country or they're from another religion or they're from another part of Wisconsin. There's always another way to look at things. And you learn that when you travel abroad, that there's other people out there that are different that you can learn a lot from. Yeah, I'm really excited that NWTC is taking this as something very important, and they're really putting a lot of emphasis on international experiences. A very small minority of people actually get to go abroad and study abroad while they're in school. So to be able to have students get those international opportunities here by meeting international students who are coming here, they can get that same experience and that same broadening of their horizons as if they went somewhere else. So I'm really excited that the school is doing that, and I really hope that it continues because I think it's really great. And it's valuable for everybody, for the community and for the students themselves.
Thanks for watching and enjoying the small pieces of the world. NWTC International Student Show, Unity in Diversity.